Golden Iris Productions presents A Confession of Faith, Why We Believe What We Believe, by Mark F. Dennis, Part 9.
Recap of Part 8. In Part 8 of A Confession of Faith, Why We Believe What We Believe, I returned to my personal story and examined what happened when the faith I inherited encountered a mind learning to question. As a teenager in Japan, I began comparing evangelical teachings with the people I actually knew. Many Japanese friends, neighbors, and teachers displayed kindness, humility, and compassion, even though my theology classified them as spiritually lost. This created a serious moral conflict. I questioned how loving and honorable people could be condemned largely because of the culture and religion into which they had been born. I also began recognizing how sincere religious belief could produce both genuine compassion and subtle exclusion by dividing humanity into the saved and the lost, believers and unbelievers, and those who belonged and those who needed to change. Reading encyclopedias and National Geographic introduced me to astronomy, geology, archaeology, and the natural history of Earth. Rock layers, fossils, continental movement, and distant starlight challenged the young Earth creationism I had been taught. I began wondering whether Genesis had been misinterpreted and whether questioning one biblical interpretation was necessarily the same as rejecting God. After graduating from the Christian Academy in Japan, I attended the Word of Life Bible Institute. I received intensive biblical training, counseled young people at Christian camps, taught Sunday school, and went door to door asking strangers about their eternal destiny. Yet knowing how to defend evangelical beliefs did not mean I remained convinced they were true.
I later studied aviation maintenance technology at LeTourneau College. Missionary aviation appeared to unite my interest in machines with the Christian service expected of me. However, after graduating in 1983, I could not honestly claim that God had called me to missionary work. I entered secular aviation, eventually joining Delta Airlines, where my world expanded beyond the Christian institutions that had shaped nearly my entire life. At Delta, I met Fiona. As she became part of my life and family, personal love overcame inherited racial and cultural boundaries. My family did not change because they lost an argument. They changed because they came to know her as a person. Part 8 concluded that prejudice often survives through distance, while understanding grows through shared meals, stories, difficulties, laughter, and love. The greatest lesson was not that I had found every answer, but that I had learned to question the answers I inherited. Truth does not need fear to defend it, and love does not require everyone to believe, look, or live exactly as we do. We may remain different without becoming enemies, and we can move toward healing by listening, understanding, forgiving, and choosing love over division.
Part 8 also asked what my family's experience might teach our divided nation. America will not heal by forcing everyone to think, worship, vote, or live alike. Healing begins when we leave the safety of our separate groups, listen to experiences different from our own, and recognize the dignity of those we have been taught to fear or distrust. We can remain different without becoming enemies, disagree without condemnation, and preserve our convictions while choosing humility, compassion, understanding, and love over prejudice and division.
What I now believe. Over the years, I continued my education through Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach. I earned degrees in aviation safety and human factors, followed by a master's degree in aerospace management. Much of this education was grounded in science, where observation, evidence, reason, and deductive thinking are essential. In aviation, an answer cannot be accepted merely because an authority figure provides it. Assumptions must be tested, evidence examined, and conclusions supported. When human lives depend upon a decision, unquestioning obedience can be dangerous. Mechanics, pilots, engineers, and safety investigators must possess the courage to identify errors and challenge unsupported conclusions. Applying the same standard. The same principle should apply to the beliefs by which we govern our lives. Religious teachings influence how we understand God, morality, other people, and ourselves. If questioning and evidence are essential when protecting physical lives, they should also matter when beliefs shape human dignity, conscience, relationships, and eternal claims. Greek philosophers placed great value upon logos, reasoned thought and explanation. Socrates questioned those who claimed knowledge. Plato explored how the mind might move beyond appearances in its search for truth. Aristotle described logos as reasoned argument, distinguishing it from appeals based primarily upon authority, character, or emotion. Using the minds we were given. If God gave us minds capable of reason, using them should not be considered rebellion. Intelligence was not given to us merely to be surrendered to religious authorities, political leaders, or inherited traditions. Honest reasoning allows us to examine claims, recognize mistakes, and accept responsibility for the conclusions by which we live. The fundamentalist Christianity of my childhood emphasized the message, trust and obey. Trust can be beautiful when it is earned, and obedience can be necessary when guided by wisdom and conscience. Unquestioning obedience, however, becomes dangerous when people surrender their judgment completely to those claiming religious or political authority. The danger of surrendered judgment. History repeatedly demonstrates what can happen when people stop asking questions and follow leaders without reservation. Religious and political authorities can manipulate fear, loyalty, and the desire to belong. When individuals surrender their judgment, they may participate in exclusion, cruelty, or injustice, while believing that obedience excuses their moral responsibility. Faith should not require us to abandon reason, conscience, or personal responsibility. A mature belief should be capable of withstanding honest examination. If a teaching cannot survive sincere questions or evidence, protecting it through fear and enforced obedience does not make it true. Honest inquiry may strengthen belief, correct it, or reveal the need for change. Accepting what I do not know. I do not know what reality ultimately is. Science allows us to observe the universe, measure its behavior, and develop increasingly accurate explanations of nature. Yet the deepest questions remain. Why does anything exist? Why can the human mind understand the laws of nature? How did consciousness emerge? And does existence possess a purpose beyond survival? I believe in God and a creator because the universe is astonishing. The order of nature, complexity of life, immensity of space, and ability of consciousness to contemplate itself suggests that reality may possess a source greater than itself. This is a belief that I hold sincerely, but it is not something I can prove beyond all doubt. An ancient and evolving creation. I accept the scientific evidence for an ancient universe and the evolution of life. Evolution provides a well-supported explanation for how organisms adapt and develop across immense periods. I no longer consider evolution and belief in a creator mutually exclusive. Science can describe natural processes without necessarily answering why existence ultimately began. A creator working through nature, change, adaptation, and development seems more plausible to me than a strictly literal interpretation of creation. The universe did not need to appear suddenly in its present form only several thousand years ago. Creation may be an unfolding process that continues developing through the natural laws governing existence. Understanding Genesis differently.
Genesis may express the profound religious conviction that existence has meaning and that the universe ultimately depends upon God. It does not need to function as a modern scientific textbook to possess spiritual value. Accepting its ancient symbolism and theological purpose allows me to respect Scripture without rejecting the evidence preserved within nature. The idea of a personal God is beautiful. It offers hope that we are known, loved, heard, and valued. It suggests that consciousness and love are not meaningless accidents, but reflections of something present within the foundation of reality.
Yet beauty and emotional comfort alone cannot establish precisely how God relates to humanity. What I cannot say with certainty. I cannot say with certainty whether God intervenes in daily events, answers prayers in the ways we expect, or resembles the personal being described by any single religious tradition. I remain open to those possibilities, but I do not want to claim knowledge I do not possess, or confuse sincere hope with demonstrated certainty. Many religions teach that humanity can encounter or become connected with a reality greater than ordinary individual existence. Christianity speaks of fellowship with God through Christ. Judaism emphasizes covenant and faithfulness, while Islam calls humanity to surrender to the one God. Hindu traditions offer different paths toward ultimate reality. Awakening and compassion. Buddhism generally does not require belief in a creator God. Nevertheless, it offers a path toward awakening, compassion, freedom from destructive attachment, and liberation from suffering. Its different understanding of ultimate reality demonstrates that humanity's religious search cannot be reduced to one question or expressed through only one theological language. Religious traditions do not teach identical things, and their differences should not be ignored. They offer conflicting understandings of God, humanity, salvation, suffering, and what may lie beyond death. Yet each tradition represents humanity's effort to understand existence, morality, suffering, purpose, and the invisible reality that may surround our lives. Right and wrong at the same time. I have come to believe that every religion may be right in some ways and mistaken in others. Religions are human attempts to describe a reality that may exceed our language and understanding. Every tradition has been shaped by history, geography, culture, politics, philosophy, and the people who preserved and interpreted it. Religions can offer wisdom, community, moral guidance, comfort, and hope. They can inspire sacrifice, forgiveness, care for the poor, and the search for meaning. They can also produce fear, exclusion, prejudice, violence, and superiority. Because no person stands outside human limitation, humility should be the beginning of every serious belief. Belief without condemnation.
I may believe something deeply without claiming that everyone who disagrees is ignorant, immoral, or condemned. I can learn from another religion without accepting all its teachings, and I can respect another person's faith without surrendering my convictions. Humility allows commitment without requiring superiority over those who reach different conclusions. Respect does not require complete agreement. It requires recognizing that another person's search for meaning may be as sincere and human as my own. Our beliefs are shaped by culture, experience, temperament, education, and inherited assumptions. Acknowledging those influences should make us slower to condemn and more willing to listen. Brothers and sisters in humanity. The greatest obstacle to religious peace is the supremacist conviction that one group alone possesses truth, moral worth, and divine favor. Once we believe God values us more than others, exclusion and discrimination become easier to justify. Humanity becomes divided into the righteous and wicked, the saved and lost, and those who belong and those who must change. I no longer want to live within that division. My faith is not built upon certainty that I possess every answer. It is grounded in wonder, reason, humility, and respect. I believe there is a Creator, while accepting that the nature of this Creator remains one of existence's greatest mysteries. Science, religion, and examination. I believe science is among humanity's most reliable ways of understanding the physical universe. I also believe religious traditions contain valuable insights, but none should be protected from examination. Faith should not fear evidence or honest questions. What is true should remain meaningful even after its assumptions and interpretations have been carefully tested. Above all, I believe how we treat one another matters more than the labels attached to our beliefs. If we surrender the need to prove ourselves superior, our differences do not have to make us enemies. We can respect one another's beliefs while recognizing that we all share the same fragile world. The courage to seek truth. Perhaps the truest expression of faith is not certainty about things we cannot know. Perhaps it is the courage to seek truth, the humility to admit our limitations, and the willingness to love those who reach different conclusions. A day of rejoicing will come when we finally recognize one another as one human family.
Christian's burden. When I was 5 years old, my father read Little Pilgrim's Progress to my brother, sister, and me before bed. John Bunyan's original book, written in 1678, presents the Protestant Christian life as an allegorical journey from sin and judgment toward forgiveness, perseverance, and eternal salvation. The story's central character, Christian, lives in the city of destruction. After reading the Bible, he becomes convinced that judgment is approaching and feels a heavy burden of sin upon his back. Although his family and neighbors plead with him to remain, he leaves home in search of salvation and the celestial city. Guided by Evangelist, Christian struggles through guilt and despair and is misdirected by Mr. Worldly Wiseman. Returning to the proper path, he enters through the wicket gate and reaches the cross. There, his burden falls from his back into an open tomb, symbolizing forgiveness and salvation through the death of Jesus. The journey continues. Christian's journey does not become easy after conversion. He climbs the hill difficulty, receives instruction and armor at the Palace Beautiful, and battles the demonic Apollyon. He then passes through the terrifying valley of the shadow of death. Salvation begins his pilgrimage, but faith must continue through struggle, danger, and uncertainty. Christian meets another pilgrim named Faithful, and together they enter Vanity Fair, a city devoted to wealth, pleasure, status, and worldly desire. Faithful is imprisoned and executed because he refuses to conform. His courage, however, inspires another traveler named Hopeful to join Christian and continue the pilgrimage toward the celestial city. Doubting Castle. Christian and Hopeful later abandon the difficult road for an easier path. They are captured by Giant Despair and imprisoned within Doubting Castle. When they have nearly surrendered to hopelessness, Christian remembers that he carries the key of promise. The key opens the prison doors, allowing them to escape and return to the proper road. After further temptations, warnings, and periods of spiritual weariness, Christian and Hopeful reach Beulah Land near the celestial city. Their final test is crossing a river representing death. Christian fears he will sink, but Hopeful encourages him. Together they cross safely and approach the city that has been their destination.
Christian and Hopeful present the certificates they received during their journey and are welcomed into eternal life. Another traveler, Ignorance, arrives without one. Although he believes his morality and sincerity should be sufficient, he is rejected. Bunyan uses his fate to insist that good behavior cannot replace personal conversion through Christ. The Pilgrim's Progress presents life as a journey from sin and judgment toward salvation. Its characters represent guilt, temptation, doubt, hypocrisy, persecution, faith, and perseverance. Hearing the story as a child reinforced my belief that humanity was divided between those remaining in the city of destruction and those following the narrow road toward heaven. Reinterpreting the pilgrimage. I still find the image of life as a pilgrimage meaningful, but I no longer believe that only members of one religion are traveling toward truth. My pilgrimage is now guided by reason, experience, humility, and love. I do not know precisely where the road ends, but honest questioning is part of the journey, not a departure from it. Everyone carries burdens, some of them immense, just as Christian does in Bunyan's story. Recognizing those burdens and gradually learning to release them can become a form of salvation within this life. The burden may consist of guilt, fear, resentment, grief, shame, or circumstances that remain beyond our control. The burden of leaving the path.
Many conservative evangelicals will understand the faith I now confess not as a different interpretation of Christianity, but as a rejection of Christ. They may tell me that I am lost in sin, deceived by human reasoning, and in need of repentance and salvation. Those of us raised within this environment were taught to view such judgments as loving warnings. Like Christian in the Pilgrim's Progress, we were expected to remain on the straight and narrow road, while every departure appeared to lead toward deception, destruction, and eternal judgment.
For many believers, that warning provided a powerful incentive to remain within the boundaries of accepted belief. For those of us who wandered from the prescribed path, however, it often became a heavy burden of guilt, fear, and shame. Christianity is not alone in using these pressures. Across many religious traditions and tightly organized societies, the fear of divine judgment, social rejection, or dishonoring one's community can discourage questioning and preserve conformity. Such systems may help hold communities together, but they can also wound those whose conscience leads them beyond the boundaries they inherited. A universal human journey. Letting go is not exclusively Christian. It is a human experience shared by Christians, members of other religions, atheists, and agnostics. We may describe the journey through different beliefs and symbols, but all of us seek freedom from the weight we carry and hope to discover healing and peace along the way. A traditional creed declares fixed doctrines with certainty. My creed must honestly state both what I believe and what I do not claim to know. Uncertainty does not mean the absence of faith. It means refusing to pretend that belief is knowledge and grounding faith instead in reason, wonder, humility, and love. A creative reality greater than ourselves. I believe existence is meaningful. The astonishing order, beauty, and complexity of the universe point toward a creative reality greater than ourselves. I call that reality God, while recognizing that God's full nature remains beyond human understanding. Belief begins for me with wonder, not with certainty that every mystery has been resolved. I believe God gave humanity minds capable of observation, reason, imagination, and discovery. Honest inquiry is therefore not the enemy of faith. Science helps us understand how the universe and life develop, while faith asks what their existence might mean. Both questions can be explored without forcing one to silence the other. Creation through evolution.
I accept the evidence for an ancient universe and the evolution of life. Evolution may be the natural process through which creation continually develops, adapts, and renews itself. Accepting science does not require me to reject a creator. It changes my understanding of how creation may have unfolded through time. I believe the Bible contains profound spiritual insight, moral wisdom, human struggle, and generations of reflection upon God. I do not believe every passage must be treated as literal history, perfect science, or God's direct and infallible words. The Bible came through human authors, languages, cultures, memories, interpretations, and institutions. Jesus of Nazareth. I believe Jesus was one of history's greatest spiritual teachers. His teachings about love, mercy, forgiveness, humility, justice, and care for the rejected remain deeply meaningful to me. I cannot say with certainty whether every later theological claim about him is historically or literally true, but his life reveals something profound about humanity and the divine. I believe no religion possesses the whole truth. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and other traditions contain wisdom, beauty, and insight. Each has also been shaped by human limitation, culture, politics, and power. Every religion may perceive part of reality clearly while remaining mistaken or incomplete in other ways. Equal human dignity. I believe no person should be considered inferior because of race, nationality, sex, sexual orientation, religion, or lack of religion. No group possesses an exclusive claim to human dignity or divine favor. Our differences are real, but they do not determine whose life has value or who deserves freedom, compassion, and respect.
I believe faith should never demand the surrender of reason or conscience. Authority must be examined, tradition may be questioned, and teaching should be judged by their effects upon human lives. Any belief that consistently produces fear, cruelty, exclusion, or superiority must be challenged, regardless of how ancient or sacred its defenders claim it to be. Honest doubt. I believe doubt can be an expression of honesty rather than rebellion. A sincere question is more honorable than a confession of belief made from fear, pressure, or the desire to belong. Genuine conviction cannot be forced. Faith must leave room for uncertainty, examination, growth, and the possibility that inherited answers may be mistaken.
I believe love is greater than doctrine. The value of a faith should be measured not only by what its followers profess, but by the lives their beliefs produce. A worthy faith should lead people towards compassion, humility, justice, forgiveness, and peace, rather than fear, condemnation, superiority, and division. One human family. I believe every person is part of one human family. Our beliefs, cultures, and ways of life may differ, but those differences do not require us to become enemies. We can disagree without condemnation and live together without demanding conformity. Human dignity does not depend upon belonging to the same religion, nation, race, or political group. I believe truth should be sought with courage, held with humility, and expressed with love. Courage allows us to question inherited assumptions. Humility reminds us that our understanding remains limited. Love determines how we treat those who reach different conclusions. Truth becomes destructive when it is separated from compassion and used to establish superiority. The faith I can confess. This is the faith I can honestly confess today. It does not provide certainty about every mystery or claim to be my journey's final destination. It represents where a lifetime of experience, education, study, questioning, and reflection has brought me. My beliefs may continue developing as I encounter new evidence, experiences, and understanding. My faith is a reasoned and inclusive belief in a Creator, grounded in wonder at the universe and expressed through compassion for humanity. Christianity gave me my first language for understanding God, and Jesus' teachings remain important to me. I no longer believe, however, that fundamentalist evangelical Christianity possesses the only truth. Science, Scripture, and conscience. I accept science, including an ancient universe and evolution. I believe sacred writings should be examined through history, reason, evidence, and conscience. The Bible can contain spiritual wisdom without being perfect science or literal history in every passage. Honest examination does not destroy sacred meaning. It helps distinguish wisdom from human interpretation.
I respect the wisdom found within many religions, without claiming that any one tradition completely defines God. My faith is not based upon certainty or unquestioning obedience. It is grounded in reason, humility, wonder, and love, a willingness to seek truth while admitting how much remains unknown and respecting those who follow different paths. Before the stars. Before the stars had filled the night, before the seas had touched the shore, you were the mystery behind the life that grows forevermore. In wonder I stand, in wonder I see the beauty of all that surrounds me. Though little I know, this truth I embrace: all life is held in infinite grace. You gave us minds that seek and learn, and hearts that feel another's pain. In every soul, in every land, your quiet presence may remain. In wonder I stand, in wonder I see, one world joined in humanity. Though many the paths on which we roam, may love be the light that leads us home.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this presentation, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share this video with others. For more content, visit my 2 YouTube channels. Mark F. Dennis at Golden Iris Knowledge Quest,
where we explore physics, cosmology, science, and emerging ideas about the structure of the universe. And Mark F. Dennis at Golden Iris Religion Quest, where we examine religion, spirituality, biblical studies, Jewish mysticism, and the history of religious thought. Your support helps these channels continue to grow and allows me to create more presentations, books, and educational content. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.